I've always told myself that we share everything, that nothing feels heavier on one side than the other. It felt fair, or at least it used to. Lately, though, I've been feeling tired in a way I can't quite explain. Not the kind that sleep can fix. More like something quietly building over time. It's not about money being tight. And there hasn't been anything unusually expensive. Still, something feels off in a way I can't ignore anymore. I've started noticing the small things more clearly. The kind I used to overlook without thinking twice. Now, they stay in my mind longer than they should. And the more I notice, the harder it is to look away. It begins to feel like a pattern, repeating in quiet ways, something I hadn't fully seen before. Morning begins the same way it always does. I prepare breakfast while Mira talks about her day. Armin gets ready and everything feels quietly in place. We talk lightly in the kitchen before leaving. Simple things about the day ahead. It feels easy, like nothing needs questioning. After they leave, the house becomes still. I open my laptop at the dining table. Small tasks quietly fill the space. A bill notification appears on the screen. I pay it without hesitation. It feels like just another small responsibility. Another payment comes in shortly after. I handle it the same way. It barely interrupts my thoughts. I never really question these moments. It feels like part of what I do every day, something that simply belongs to me. By midday, I go out to shop for groceries. I choose things carefully, staying within what I planned. Everything feels measured and controlled. On the surface, everything continues as usual. Nothing feels out of place yet. But I start noticing the pattern more closely. That afternoon, I opened my transaction history without thinking much. At first, I only glanced at it while sitting at the dining table. Then I paused longer than I expected. I started noticing the same name appearing again and again. It showed up in almost every payment listed. And it was my name. At first, I didn't question it too much. It felt like something ordinary, something explainable. Maybe it was just how things happened lately. The next day, I checked again without planning to. The pattern hadn't changed at all. That's when something started to feel off. I tried to remember the last time Armin paid for something. I searched through small moments in my memory. But nothing came up clearly. It wasn't because he didn't care. And it wasn't because he refused. It was something quieter than that. I realized I often reached first without thinking. I handled things quickly before anyone else needed to. It felt easier that way. That's when it became clearer to me. This wasn't about who should pay. It was about a pattern I had quietly built over time. The days feel slightly different now. Not because anything changed, but because I started noticing. Small details I used to ignore now stay longer in my mind. Each payment feels a little heavier than before. Not in amount, but in how aware I am now. It lingers for a moment after it's done. I keep doing everything like usual. Nothing outwardly changes in how I move through the day. It all looks the same from the outside. A quiet irritation starts to grow. I can't quite place where it's coming from, so I keep it to myself. I tell myself I can handle it, that it's not a big deal. That thought used to feel enough, but now something feels off. I can't explain it clearly. It's just there, quietly present. I begin to feel alone in this, even though it's something we're supposed to share. The feeling grows quietly. I realize this isn't just about money. It's about something we never really talked about, and now I can't ignore it anymore. Dinner felt like any other evening. I moved through it without thinking too much. Everything seemed steady on the surface. I listened to Mira talk about her day. Her voice filled the room in a comforting way. I let myself stay in that moment. Then she asked something simple. It landed heavier than I expected. I felt it settle quietly inside me. I didn't answer right away. The question echoed longer than it should. I knew why it felt uncomfortable. Armand turned his head toward me. It was a small movement, but it carried meaning. Something unspoken started to surface. The room didn't change much, but it no longer felt the same. There was a quiet awareness now. I felt something settle in my chest. Not sharp, just present. It stayed with me quietly. It wasn't about the money itself. It was about how it felt to carry it alone. That realization stayed longer than the moment. I began to see it more clearly now. This wasn't really sharing the way I thought it was. I was simply stepping in without noticing. No one asked me to carry it this way. It slowly became something I just did. Over time, It felt normal. I thought keeping things smooth was the right way. No need to pause or bring things up. It felt easier to just continue. But that's where something shifted. I never made space for another way. I kept everything inside my own rhythm. Armand couldn't really understand what I never showed. I kept things quiet, even when they felt heavy, so he stayed where I left him. I built my own version of balance. Then I wondered why it felt off. It's a quiet kind of irony. There isn't really someone to blame here. This pattern didn't appear all at once. It grew quietly over time. Now I can see the choice in front of me. I can keep going as I have. Or I can start saying what I've been holding. The house finally felt quiet after Mira fell asleep. I sat next to Armin, unsure where to begin. It felt like holding something fragile inside my chest. I didn't want this to sound like blame. I just wanted to say what had been sitting quietly inside me. Even saying it in my mind felt different tonight. The words came out more softly than I expected. I told him I felt like I was handling most of the payments. And somehow, saying it made the weight feel lighter. Armand didn't interrupt right away. He paused, then slowly nodded. His reaction felt steady, not defensive. He said he hadn't really noticed. Everything always seemed to be taken care of. Hearing that, I realized how invisible it had become. We started talking about small things first. Simple expenses, daily routines, things we had never really discussed. It felt unfamiliar, but also steady. For the first time, I wasn't holding everything alone. There was a small shift in how things felt. It wasn't dramatic, but it mattered. Nothing changed all at once, but I felt something subtle quietly inside me, like being heard in a way that stayed. The days began to feel lighter in a quiet way. Nothing has disappeared, but it no longer sits only on me. There is space where tension used to be. We start taking turns without making it a big thing. Small reminders pass between us naturally. It feels less like effort and more like rhythm. I no longer keep things to myself when something feels heavy. The words come out simply, without pressure. Speaking feels quieter than holding it in. Armin shows up in ways I used to handle alone. It's not dramatic, but I notice it. The presence feels steady and real. The changes are small, almost easy to miss, but they settle into everyday life, and that makes them feel real. I don't feel alone in it anymore. The responsibilities are still there, but they don't weigh the same. Something about it feels shared now. Now it feels truly shared, not just assumed. There's clarity where there used to be guessing, and that changes how everything feels. The house feels lighter in a way I didn't expect. Not because there's more money, but because there's less weight to carry alone. And that quiet shift changes everything. I used to think I was carrying everything because I had to, but now I see I never really paused to let someone else take part. It became easier to just keep going than to ask. Staying quiet felt like the simplest choice. Nothing had to be explained, nothing had to change, but the silence made everything invisible, even the weight I was holding. I started to understand that sharing isn't only about money. It's about speaking, even when it feels uncomfortable, and trusting that being honest won't break everything. The shift didn't come in a big moment. It started with one small conversation that felt different. And somehow, that was enough to change the rhythm between us. Maybe I didn't need to become stronger all along. Maybe I just needed to stop doing everything alone, and let someone stand beside me, not behind.